Well, hello and welcome. It's the start of a new trading week right here in Lagos, Nigeria. But first, let's get a check on how your money performed last week in that holiday shortened week. You see the Nigeria stock market extended its losing streak to a fourth consecutive week with the all-share index that dropped about 0.94%, closing at 138,980, down from 140,000 in the previous week. Market activity slowed slightly as trading volume that dipped to about 3.1 billion shares. And we see the hardest hits there were premium stocks, dragging the week's performance into negative territory. The week began on Monday, that's last week, in the red, shedding over 570 points. The decline intensified on Tuesday and lingered into Wednesday. However, Thursday closed in the green as the index staged a 822-point recovery, trimming the weekly loss, and definitely got Friday there as a public holiday. Let's look at some of the sectors that we tracked. Now, let's see the performance for the sector. We see it was all red, with the biggest drop coming from industrial goods, down 2.08%. And we see banking, big 1.52%, consumer goods, 1.18%. And we see insurance, not so bad, but down 0.36% to close the week. So that's how your money performed last week. Let's see if this week maybe gets better. Maybe we'll see green for this trading. We'll definitely be watching out for that. Well, to other stories now, the Lagos State government announced the commencement of its stakeholders consultative forum for the year 2026 budget, a platform designed to give residents a voice in shaping the state's developmental priorities for the coming year. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu says the initiative will engage a broad spectrum of stakeholders, including community groups, traditional rulers, professional bodies, civil society, trade organizations, and the youths, and people living with disabilities, underscoring the government's commitment to participatory governance and evidence-based planning. And over the weekend, we see Nigeria's Central Bank Governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, reiterated the bank's determination to sustain a stable macroeconomic indices and attract more investors into the country. Dr. Cardoso shared this during a meeting in Lagos, believes that the ongoing recapitalization exercise will further drive this course. Take a listen.
It's a unique opportunity to reflect on Nigeria's evolving business climate.
Members of the European Business Chamber, who've been operating in Nigeria for decades, now have made some observations on the economic trend of the country and have decided to share it.
This forum today is about more than insights. It's about engagement, dialogue, and solutions that can strengthen investor confidence and unlock opportunities between Nigeria and Europe.
They have the attention of the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, as he reiterates the bank's commitment to establishing macroeconomic stability.
Coming in, I must say, one of the biggest challenges was to build trust back in the system. It was hugely important, because without trust, you simply cannot do it. As the FX rate begins to moderate, which it is, then obviously you see an impact on inflation. But again, these things do take time, but they are working in the right direction.
Mr. Cardoso also responded to questions bordering on the much-needed collaboration between the monetary and fiscal authorities.
At the monetary level, we have regular interaction. In fact, we meet, and in fact, I'm quite surprised. In fact, after this discussion, I had no idea how much collaboration takes place between central bank governments. I had no idea. I knew it was there, but I had no idea how deep it was. So we do a lot of that.
Mr. Cardoso observes that the recent decrease in headline inflation is one of the results of collective effort.
All right, let's get a check on our major forex earner now. See oil prices climb more than dollar, regaining some of last week's losses, helped by the prospect of more sanctions on Russian crude after an overnight strike in Ukraine. OPEC Plus flagged plans to further increase production from October But the amount was modest. Both benchmarks fell more than 2%. That was last week Friday's a weak U.S. jobs report. That dimmed the outlook for energy demand. It lost more than 3%. That's for the week. But we're starting off this week now with some strength. We'll see if that continues. 1.77% rise this morning. That's for Brent crude at $66. That's like 666. Wow, interesting. And WTI crude, $62.98 a barrel, a big 1.79%. We'll see if that continues later on into the afternoon trade. All right, that takes us into another conversation now. The recent standoff between Dangote Group and the Petroleum Workers Union has once again brought the intersection of labor rights, industrial growth, and market competitiveness into sharp focus. At the heart of the matter are concerns over unionization, fair labor practices, and the wider implications for Nigeria's industrial landscape, with the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria positioned as a key voice in shaping policy there. But let's look at the position of some of the stakeholders there with the standoff. We see NUPENG initiated the indefinite strike. They're protesting anti-union hiring policies and wage issues. NLC fully supports NUPENG, mobilizing affiliates and calls for governmental intervention. The federal government is calling for dialogue, scheduled a conciliation meeting for today. GTCDA rejected by NUPENG as a ploy to divide the workforce. Then IPMAN, one zone sides with NUPENG, and they see the national leadership there opposing the strike. All right, let's see how we can balance this conversation. Now, joining us for this, we have Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, is the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning. All right, before we get into the conversation now, I know you're at the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, IATF 2025. That's underway in Algiers, and you're present at the event. What's been your experience so far? Before you respond, try to unmute.
Okay, yes, I think I've done so.
Yes, fantastic. I can hear you now.
Okay, yes, thank you very much again for having me on your show. Here in Algiers, I think we are witnessing what appears to be a resurgence in the commitment of Africans, businessmen and government and ordinary people, that the best way for Africa to prosper is for us to do business together, to connect with each other.
Good morning. Yes, sir.
And to ensure that we do all that is needed to break down the binding constraints that has limited our general trade. We have seen enthusiasm amongst most Africans. The president of Algeria was here. African leaders, including our own former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, were here, all expressing the sentiments that it is important for Africa to come together, produce what we consume what we produce, do business together, grow together, and ensure that we are able to use business to advance integration and the overall well-being of the average African. So the mood here is high. Nigerians are fully represented here. Yesterday, we had a business meeting with our Algerian counterparts, where we agreed on what needed to be done to break down the logistics constraints, to build cross-border value chain, for us to do joint ventures. We identified business areas where we could connect our members and generally ensure that we narrow down the constraints that has limited our capacity to integrate and trade amongst ourselves.
All right, definitely we'll be looking forward to more information coming out from Algiers, and you'll see how Africa can trade with Africa more. But let's get straight into the conversation now. Definitely, we've seen threats, at this point, and I'm sure consumers are getting jittery, at this point, what's playing out in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. We're seeing NUPENG there; they have demands. We're seeing the Dangote refinery trying to do business. As the Director General of MAN, how do you assess what NUPENG is asking for, at this point, and, saying that Dangote's stance is has an anti-union recruitment policy. How do you see all of this, playing out, right now? And, definitely when we see the elephants fighting, it almost seems like, the grass will suffer and we might see the impact, of fuel prices. How are you seeing the whole situation play out today?
Yes, thank you very much. This is a very worrisome development. And you did say that when 2 elephants fight, the grass suffers. Incidentally, the grass is 230 million people whose livelihoods are at stake, and a lot of businesses that have to rely on the uninterrupted flow of petroleum products. I believe that even here in Nigeria, it is a concern, because when we had the news, we were saying not again, that now that we are achieving some reasonable stability, the macroeconomic indicators are looking right, stabilizing, and now we are going to have this major disruption that may just upturn all that we have achieved. Incidentally, it was only, I think, 2 days ago that we had the Dangote Day at the Algiers, Safex in Algiers, and a lot of people were full of praises for this daring African who has invested so much and who is bringing relief and economic development, not only to his country, but to Africa. So to now hear that there's going to be, first and foremost, that there's a disagreement between the refinery and the labor union, and also that there's going to be a national strike that is going to disrupt the flow of activities in the petroleum sector, is a very worrying development. My members have also called to say that, look, I mean, we are just managing to operate at about 57% of our installed capacity, and we have entered the second part of the year. All that we are looking forward to is that we are able to recoup the losses that we have made. We are hoping to be able to overcome the logistics disruption that accompanied the situation at the ports. So if this one should join, then our outlook for the second half of the year is going to be perilous. And so that's why everything must be done by government, by the stakeholders, to ensure that this strike is not only averted, but that we do not have either this one or any kind of disruption in this second half of the year. Concerning the anti-labor practices, the little I know about this is the fact that everybody has the right to join or not to join the union. And I believe that the union is a democratic institution. Wherever you want somebody to join, and that's what happens in my organization, you need to persuade them, for instance, to be able to join your organization. I mean, so that they are able to prefer you to any other organization, or to get them to join rather than refusing to join. So I think those are the conversations that we should have. And we should not always hurry to embark on strike, because the grass that we suffer is the entire Nigerian economy and its people. So, but happily, we are able to hear, we heard that the federal government, I think later in the day today, will try to bring the two of them together, and they will have a conversation. I believe that reason should prevail. We shouldn't shoot down this business that has changed the game in the petroleum sector and is looking forward to putting behind us the issue of fuel scarcity. I think in September last year, I've not heard about any scarcity, and it's thanks to the emergence of the Dangote refinery. So I think we should be very mindful of those, and Nigerians should prevail on NUPENG and the affiliates to allow reason to come into play here.
Right, and definitely we don't want any fuel scarcity, at this point, because we know how that has this domino effect. You see traffic, everywhere, and customers will have to pay more, for fuel prices. So we hope this is sorted out as soon as possible. But before I let you go now, do you believe the manufacturing sector, should follow a collective, standard on unionization, especially when labor conditions, in one major firm like the Dangote refinery could influence others?
Okay, even though the question was a bit distorted on my side, but I guess what you are saying is what we feel about unionization in the manufacturing space, if that's
Right,
what you
yes,
asked.
yeah.
Yeah, so what I think is that it's the right of every worker to join in an association, in a union. And I believe that the union leaders have a very important role to play in protecting the rights of their members, their workers. But it is also very important to do that within the context of the law. I don't think it's right for you to compel anyone to join your union. And at the same time, there should be dialogue in case you have situations where you have disagreement with employers. At the end of the day, and from what I know about the Dangote group in this instance, I know that they pay way above the minimum wage. I also know that they have HMO for their staff. I know that they are well trained, and that they also are mindful of their conditions. I mean, that much I know because Dangote Industries Limited is our member, and we do benchmark what happens in the industry to be able to know who is, because it's in the interest of every employer for their workers to be well treated. And you will imagine that Dangote, that has more than 10,000 trucks that will be moving on the way, it will not be wise for you not to treat your staff well, because you can just start recording losses in terms of the tankers and so on. So it's in a relative self-interest to do so. And we do strongly believe that the company, just like many other companies in my association that have truck, always do to their staff. So I think dialogue is important. Collective bargaining is key to industrial development, but it must be done within the confines of the law. And it's in the workers' interest also that there's no disruptions, because workers have families and we are all Nigerians. So I believe that the labor union, NUPENG, NLC, and all other unions should be able to close ranks on this one, and ensure that this fragile stability that we have is not undermined. I mean, we have 4 months or so to the end of the year, and everybody agrees that our businesses have not done very well. The federal government has done its bit and should sustain this stability and move us to growth and progress. So we, the people, should not do anything to disrupt this process. And this could be a very dangerous trend if we do not check it at this time.
All right, thank you so much, sir. We do hope for a win-win situation for everyone at this point. Thank you, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, is the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me. All the best.
All right, now to our next conversation. Nigeria's economy is navigating a complex moment with foreign exchange volatility, high inflation, and urgent need for inclusive growth, even though we've seen stability with the Naira so far. The heart of this challenge is the banking sector, which must balance stability with innovation and align closely with government policy to unlock real sector growth. This year, the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria are convening leaders under the theme, The New Economic Playbook, the intersection of banking, policy, and technology. It focuses on how banks can adapt to rapid policy reforms, embrace new technologies, and build greater trust with customers in a fast-changing landscape. Joining us now to share insights in this crucial conversation is Professor Pius Olariwaju, who is the president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. It's great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Thank you for having me on this wonderful program this morning.
Thank you so much, sir. But before we get into the conversation now, the 18th CIBN Annual Banking and Finance Conference, that's coming up. What can we expect from this year's conference? What's on the front burner?
The 18th Banking and Finance Conference, which is the movement when all banking experts in Africa and the global at large always convened in Abuja, is taking place on the 9th and on the 10th of this month, starting tomorrow by God's grace. And like you did mention, all we are looking at, the theme of the conference is all about the new economic playbook, the intersection between banking, and also policy, then, technology. I believe in the CIBN is that these three, they are interwoven, because there's no way you can be talking of a meaningful development without a very robust banking system. And over the years, the banking sector of the economy has played a very significant role in this area. We also believe that we do not operate in isolation. There is always a need for us to follow and adhere strictly to those policies and regulations that are being put in place to regulate us. And with the evolution of AI and technology at large, we believe we need to get a better understanding about the latest issue related to technology, so that at the end of the day, we can have a very robust system and an economic system that all of us will be proud of in Africa. So it's going to be a wonderful session, and we call all our members, both at the corporate level and individual level. In fact, the majority of them are already in Abuja waiting for this conference.
All right, so definitely we're looking forward to outcomes from the conference. But we see, Nigeria is facing, multiple economic headwinds from, FX weakness. Looking at, where we're coming from, before harmonization to, inflation. In your view, what role should banks play, in stabilizing the economy under this new economic playbook?
Yes, under the economic playbook, like I did mention, what we need, first of all, is the stability, which was lacking after some time, but we thank God that we have been able to get to that stage where we can be talking of a stable economy, that we can plan purposefully as to what will happen in the future. But beyond that, we need capital. We have in this nation today infrastructural inadequacies all over the place. But with the new policy that came into being, in 2024, the issue of recapitalization, that has gone a long way to help the banking system to be more liquid. And for example, if we look at what has happened within that time, and now, about 16 banks that are listed had already raised about new capital of 2.5 trillion naira, within the capital, which made them to be more liquid and be able to finance those critical areas of the economy that needs financing, most especially in the infrastructure where we have some inadequacies. Like, for example, the issue of power that has been raging over the year, the issue of bad roads, the issue of security. We need finance to be able to run this system effectively. And that is exactly one of the major things we intend to do. And we believe that with this capitalization coming to an end in 2026, there is need for us to meet and dialogue and see how we can play more pivotal role, in building a very robust economic system.
Right, and definitely we know the banks are very important. Definitely we all keep our monies there, and somehow when we need cash for projects, try and go to the banks at the same time. How do you think the banking sector can better align with government policies to support sustainable growth and job creation in the country?
Yes, like I did mention, now that the banks are being fully recapitalized under the new policy, we believe that we have more access to more liquid and cash. And when you look at some of the variables that we are already seeing already, for example, the cash ratio, for example, they'll be able to raise it even before the threshold by almost 13%. And we believe, apart from that, there are some challenges that we're having within the ecosystem that bank needs to play a very pivotal role, especially in areas of anti-money laundering. They have been doing that. In the area of also ensuring sound corporate governance, we have been doing that, and ESG, that's environmental and social governance, being put in place. We believe that if we are able to do this and set a pace and set a standard, our customers are likely to follow. Then, on the issue of issues like issue of cybersecurity, we have been playing a very vital role over the years. And I'm sure that the bank CEOs have been meeting from time to time to to see how we can surmount this challenge. Although there are still some element of this challenge in place, but we are confronting them. And we know with time, we'll be able to, achieve a greater result.
All right, let's look at the technology of things now with financial services. We know Nigeria is Africa's fintech hub, and there was that narrative about banks seeing fintech as competitors. Is that still the case now, or are we seeing collaboration?
Yes, a lot of things have changed. At the initial stage, like any other in any other system, when new things come, there are bound to be some initial challenges. But we have seen them as partners in progress. There have been fintech integration over the years. Most banks are involved in fintech arrangement, and they have their own, and we are working together. And even the statistics at our disposal has gone a long way to confirm the fact that the integration is already using a very good result. For example, you look at the payment system in Nigeria today. In 2024, for example, we are able to process about 7.9 billion transactions in that 2024. This would have been possible through the old model of banking. But because we are able to harness and work with the fintech, we are able to achieve even better results. In the very first quarter, it will be of interest to you that we, in the very first quarter, we had already, done a transaction, amounting to about 3.17.2 trillion in quarter one of 2025. We believe that we are trending on a higher pedestal, and we believe that working with them will go a long way in solving most of our problems. We have also been involved in open banking and agency banking. This has gone a long way, and we also want to applaud the CBN too, who has put in place digital naira, e-naira in place. All these things are technologically driven, and we know that the way to go in future is for us to embrace technology. So banks has fully embraced technology, and that's why apart from even fintech, we are going into the realm of even artificial intelligence. And you find out that in some banks today, you find out some of these AI, performing wonders. I don't want to go into the specific, but nearly all the banks are engaging in this. So it has been a very mutually beneficial benefit. We work together to build a system where payment system will be faultless. And from the data available at my disposal, I think Nigeria is one of the leading, in terms of payment system, is one of the leading countries in that respect. And this is not unconnected with the collaboration between the banking and also the fintech institutions. So we believe, and on our own, as the trainer of the system, setting standard in the system, we have also gone away in putting some certifications in place so that people are not just coming into the realm without adequate knowledge. There is need for them to continue to update their knowledge from time to time. These are some of the things we are doing in collaboration with our corporate members that are banks and fintechs.
And yes, you did mention technology and the use of artificial intelligence, but with rising cases of cyber fraud, what steps is the industry taking to strengthen customer protection while embracing digital transformation?
Yes, the AI issue is a global issue. And you will recollect that a lot of Nigerian banks are operating outside the shores of this economy. And the future of banking is will be solely built on the issue related to AI. That is why we have taken this into consideration, and we are doing everything within our means to make sure that AI issue is well understood. We are not just taking it hook, line, and sinker. We are doing it in such a way that we are teaching people what it is, that it's an enabler. It's not something, it doesn't mean that people will not work or that the system will collapse and everything. Rather, it is something that is an enabler, and we are even retraining, people to be able to meet up with the challenges, that has to do with the issue of AI. And we are also looking at the ethical side of it, because there is ethical AI. Because people believe that there are certain things that can be done wrongly. We are not averse to that fact, but what we are trying to do as an industry is to make sure that we don't just throw it away without looking at the key area. We believe it's a bush of thorns a bush of roses that may have some thorns. But nevertheless, we are hesitant that is the way to go. Technology is the way to go. And I'm calling all our members, both corporate members, to come and listen to experts across the globe who will be coming to this program to share their knowledge and expertise in this area during this conference.
All right, thank you so much. Definitely looking forward to it, Professor Pius Olaiwoju, the President of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on the show today. All right. Yeah,
Thank you for having me on your program.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll have a little delay there, but definitely we'll surmount that delay, at some point. But we'll take a break now. When we come back, we're looking at regulation in the digital lending space in Nigeria. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Nigeria's digital lending landscape has exploded, and not always for the better. Long before formal regulation, many consumers face harassment from loan apps, opaque charges, and breaches of privacy. But that's changing now. We see the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission unveiled the DION Consumer Lending Regulation 2025. DION stands for Digital, Electronic, Online, or Non-Traditional Lending, marking a critical step in safeguarding consumer rights. Since July 21st, all digital lenders must register with the FCCPC, comply with transparent loan terms, fair interest rates, data privacy rules, and or face stiff penalties if they don't. To help us unpack how Nigeria is reforming its digital credit space and what this means for consumers and lenders alike, we're joined by the FCCPC's Director of Corporate Affairs, Mr. Ndaje Jagu. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Lardy, and good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for having me on the show.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. So, Mr. Jagu, first off, why did the FCCPC feel the urgency, to enforce these regulations on the digital lending space?
The DION consumer lending regulations, as you would know, is actually something that is sort of a revolution, kind of. It's a blueprint for consumers to access credit in a manner that is safe, transparent, and respectful. You would agree that in the recent past, it's been very difficult times for Nigerian consumers. Consumers, like every other strata of society, is entitled to credit facilities. And we had a situation where you could have an app pop up on your phone and entice you to get some credit facilities, and the next moment you're defamed, you are harassed, you're treated in a manner that you never imagined. So what we have done is sort of a revolution. We have looked at all the issues that had occurred in the past, and we have taken them together, and then we have a blueprint that is so broad that covers every aspect of digital lending. And as you know too, we are in an era where we cannot do away with digital facilities. We have to always have the electronic facilities around us. We have to make adequate use of those facilities. And it's an easy way, it's convenient. And because of its convenience, consumers had embraced it as they ought to, but the players had not done well. And what we have done also, like you also know, has a whole lot with respect to enforcement. We had enforced in the past, but with this current blueprint that I would say, because I would like to call it a blueprint, is something that even other countries may have to learn from Nigeria. And I like to say that with this current blueprint, enforcement has been made easier, much more than ever before. Now we would have to know whoever is behind any of the loan apps, any of the credit facilities that consumers are obtaining. We have to have their profile, their company history, and everything. And as such, it makes it very easy. And penalties are clearly spelled out in this regard. we didn't used to, we were relying solely on our law, which was the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act of 2018. But now we have a regulation that has made it clearer. The Dion regulation has made that area, the space clearer, and now we have offenses clearly spelled out. And then we also have penalties clearly spelled out. We could hold both individual operators and corporate organizations responsible. Now there would be accountability, and like I said, it will be very easy to enforce this time around.
Right. We know there's a saying that the borrower is a slave, to the lender. And, looking at, some borrowers at this point, some of them, they borrow with no intention, of paying back. What's in the regulation for irresponsible borrowers that, go to these apps, try to get a loan with no intention of paying back?
Oh, that's very good. Yes, the regulation takes care of that. It is not like consumers were borrowing necessarily without the intention of paying back. What happened in the past was that the operators never bothered to check whether consumers could pay back. And now the new regulation makes it mandatory for operators to be able to ensure that they run a check, the profile, whoever will be borrowing money, and to be sure that such a fellow would be able to pay back. You know what happened in the past was that the operators were just throwing these monies at consumers and then feeling that, look, we could use all sorts of whatever tactics to get consumers to pay, twisting consumers in different ways to pay at all costs. They harass you, they publish things that are false about you and all of that. But now, the new regulation makes it mandatory. You must have to be able to profile your customer well to know that he has the capability to pay back. Not doing so is an offense under the law. And so you would have a situation where there will be sanity, there will be dignity. Those days also, some consumers will tell you, the kind of complaints we had in the past was such that some consumers will tell you that they didn't have the option of either opting out or opting in. Some of these loans were thrown at certain consumers because we had complaints in our office where we understand that some persons just had their accounts credited with a loan. And they try to ensure that these things are sorted out and the people will not be there to do so. But currently, the regulation has made it such that you would not be able to do that. If you do that, it's an offense. And you know that the penalties are quite stiff. The penalties for contravention ranges from sanctions, from also suspending the operations of the different operators, as well as fines, very huge fines that could be imposed if you violate the regulations. So we want to believe that consumers, there will be sanity this time around, and like I said, enforcement will be very easy because we're able also to profile the operators to be sure that, look, this is the fellow that is offering this service. Those days we had some shell companies that were used in Nigeria by people largely from even Asian countries who were not domiciled in Nigeria. We had raided some of their facilities, and you will discover that the people who were perpetrating this were even outside Nigeria. But what they did largely was use Nigerian companies as shell companies, and then you never get to know the identity of the real operators. But by the new regulation, the operator's identity must be known. It is something that they cannot hide any longer. So in this case, we would be sure that consumers would be respected, they would operate in that space with dignity, and they can only now access credits that they can pay back. And also, you know that there were issues of unilateral change of terms and conditions where sometimes your fees would just be upgraded without even informing you. It will not be something that is negotiated at all. it was usually something that was done unilaterally. So given the current situation, there will not be those kind of situations. Fees were also imposed in a manner that didn't follow due process. There was no fairness in what was happening. Sometimes unilaterally the companies will just say, okay, look, you borrowed X naira, you have to pay X 5 naira. And that was what we were experiencing. So, but that will not happen in this current regime.
Okay, let's pivot to another issue now. That's the health of consumers. Recently, the FCCPC issued a warning against consuming fruit, ripened with carbide. Talk to us about how the FCCPC is enforcing this. Are the culprits, being caught at this point? And we know I did have a farmer recently, and he did, talk about issues reasons why some traders would, try to force the fruits to ripen, because most of the time they don't have where to store some of these fruits and all of. But that's not an excuse. But how are you enforcing this new law?
It's not a new law, and on the issue of forced ripening of fruits, that has been with us. It's that people are not maybe sensitized enough to know that these things cause a lot of health hazards to consumers. So what we are doing at the moment is to sensitize consumers, sensitize farmers, sensitize everybody that is in the value chain to know the dangers with using those kind of harmful substances to preserve food. So what we are doing essentially is consumer education. It is also stakeholders sensitization. We have mapped out those who are stakeholders in that regard, and we are dealing with it in terms of getting the information across to them. And from what has been happening so far, we are happy that even farmers, traders, as well as consumers have embraced the campaign. So we are happy that we are beginning to at least touch base with people who are involved in that kind of conduct. Farmers who would preserve their produce with those kind of harmful substance, we are talking with them. So what we are doing essentially is consumer and also stakeholders education and engagement.
Fantastic. You heard it here. Stop forcing those fruits to ripen. Allow them ripen, naturally. Thank you so much for helping us unpack all of this. Mr. Ondaje Ijagu is the Director of Corporate Affairs, FCCPC. Thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Yeah, that was a delay again. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll pivot to health. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.
There are places you would like to go. There are faces you would like to see.
My palm is bruised. It's a tiny scar, but it's very painful.
Too many exciting things happening all at once.
From time I've always loved playing the villain.
But you can't be everywhere. Guess what? Yes, we can. Your favorite lifestyle content lives here. Let us be your eyes and ears here on Entertainment News on Channels Television.
All right, now we turn the spotlight to the critical link between energy and healthcare delivery in Nigeria. Many hospitals and primary health centers across the country still struggle with unreliable electricity, affecting everything from surgeries, vaccine storage, and diagnostic equipment to basic patient care. And it's quite sad. You hear of cases where we lose a life in a hospital because they didn't have power to power some of their equipment or even store some of these critical, medicines, that we need to take care of our health. Well, to help us unpack this, we have Dr. Agwor Ibuta, the Vice President, Medical Initiative for Africa, Abuja. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. So, why is reliable power supply such a pressing issue for the health sector in Nigeria? Some would think it's a no-brainer that a health facility, in 2025 should be somehow shielded from, energy issues, knowing how critical, healthcare is.
Well, imagine that I will share a story which plays out in many health facilities across the country, across the sub-region. Imagine you walk into a consulting room and the consultation is going on the electronic medical record, and the light goes off. That would completely abort that process. Or you go to the lab and you want to do as simple as a malaria test, and you don't have a microscope and you don't have light to power that microscope to see the parasite and deliver a diagnosis. Or you cannot even do the chest x-ray because you don't have light. Or maybe you are on the surgery table, you are in theater and you are in a ventilator that is powered by light and it goes off. That is catastrophic. Or you go to the immunization center and you are giving vaccines, and these vaccines have lost their potency because there has been a break in the cold chain, because there has been light interruptions, as the case may be. Or you go all the way to the pharmacy and the drugs that are supposed to be stored in certain temperatures have lost their potency because of heat and all of that. So this is a story that plays out in many of the systems we have in place. And so there is an initiative that would hope to address that. In fact, it's called the Power for Health Initiative, which has been put together by multiple partners, led by the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. I mean, the information we have concerning that summit is that it's the first of its kind. We've not had that kind of thing. You have people who are in the government sector and the private sector and the development organization, the civil societies. And in the government, you have the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, you have the Ministry of Power, you have the Primary Healthcare Development Agency, you have the Energy Commission, and you also have the Rural Electrification Agency, and organizations like the WHO, the UNDP, and the Clinton Health Access Initiative. And of course, the numerous other organizations, health leaders, private sectors. This is the first time they will be coming together to unpack a compact policy that addresses the health needs of the health sector, so that we can banish those stories of the past where drugs expire because we cannot store them properly, because our vaccines lose their potency because there will be a break in the cold chain, or even hospitals grown under the climbing cost of energy needs. We do know from the data available to us that as much as 10 to 40% of the overhead in some health facilities goes to energy needs in the form of payment to the energy provision agencies, in the form of payment for diesel, for generator, and all of that. But the alternative would be to come up with a strategy that provides some form of climate-friendly, sustainable, cost-efficient energy, which is basically from alternative sources like solar and the rest. So that is what a summit like this that is being planned for tomorrow and next tomorrow aims to achieve.
All right, so we've had a lot of discussions, a lot of summits. What would make this one, the outcome of this one, actually something that we'll actually feel, when it comes to the health sector, that we'll actually see power and not make it just another, dialogue, people come together, but no impact?
Well, the interesting thing about this time is that you have the kind of players that you have in place. Like I pointed out, you have the government, you have private sector, you have development organizations, and you have innovators from the private sector who will be presenting all kinds of solutions cost-efficient solutions, evidence-based solutions that can drive this process. I would give you a slight example of, there are private facilities across the country who have, we are well aware, have adopted solar power with inverters. In fact, one in particular that I'm fully aware about saw a drop in their energy needs, a cost to provide energy in the facility dropping by as much as 75%. In one case in particular, the total expenditure on power, on NEP, on the power, the power from the independent producers of power dropped from as much as 1.6 million to just 300,000 naira a month. So imagine that private facilities, government facilities key into this initiative, and everybody discusses passionately, providing solutions that are sustainable. It will go a long way in reducing the groaning impact of expanding and increasing cost of energy in the health sector. This will also increase efficiency to start with, because a lot of the facilities, if you have a facility that runs only 6 hours out of 24 hours because of limitation to access to energy, and you now have that facility running 24 hours, you can preserve drugs for longer, preserve vaccines for longer, you can offer services for longer periods. You can run your theaters, address emergencies, all throughout the day to a large extent, and that would of course increase the efficiency, because despite the limitations we have in terms of human resource, the absence of energy undermines the efficiency of the current level of human resource we have. So we will be dealing and addressing multi-dimensional challenges that are undermining the efficiency of the health sector by coming together, coming up with a compact agreement, looking at solutions driven by Nigerians and supported by development partners, and of course supervised by civil society organizations.
All right, looking forward to it. The Power in Health dialogue. Hopefully we solve all of these issues. Thank you so much, Dr. Agbo Ebuta, the Vice President, Medical Initiative for Africa, Abuja. All right.
Always a pleasure to be here. So it's coming up tomorrow and next tomorrow, and of course it's holding at the State House Banquet Hall. So we expect everyone to show.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll take a moment now. Let's see what's going to drive sentiment in global space. What to watch now. The first look at the August inflation in the U.S. Consumer Price Index. That will show how price pressures are impacting the economy, with Federal Reserve officials under pressure to cut interest rates later this month. Investor focus on jobs data to finish. That finished last week. We saw the S&P, NASDAQ react to that. Then China's inflation data, that's expected to show continued deflation. CPI down by 0.2%. Year on year. Then we see Apple is expected to unveil the new iPhone 17 at its event. That's tomorrow, where other models of the iPhone are likely to be unveiled, including a thin version called the Air, along with the Pro models. The markets in Lagos are open right now, definitely. Hopefully you can make that profitable trade. Thank you for watching Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.